Hello and welcome to the second podcast episode from the Voices for Inclusive Activity research project. This is exploring more accessible and inclusive ways of evaluating disability sport and physical activity. My name is Vanessa and I'm joined by co-researchers Fiona, give me a wave, hi, Tom, who I also went away from because I'm just cheesy like that, and Bev, who definitely does a fabulous wave. Please listen back to episode 1 if you'd like more information about who we all are. So just before we get started, please note that this recording is available as an audio podcast, a video via YouTube, including subtitles, and as a written transcript. Now, in this episode, we will be talking about the process of our research. So this includes what we did, how we found a group of participants, and who has helped us along the way. I am going to start with Fiona. So Fiona, please could you talk to us a little bit about how we planned our research proposal together?
We started planning our research proposal in 2020. So it was actually in the middle of the COVID-19 lockdown, which meant we couldn't all be together in person, which is why this became a kind of virtual project for a lot of the time. And we'd meet over Zoom. So our first initial meetings were all over Zoom. We'd never met each other before, but we'd been put in touch by a mutual contact. And we were all really excited to just be part of something new and a different project, helping out Bev with her research for her PhD. So initially it was Zoom meetings and we did a lot of note taking together and getting to know each other, so strengths and interests and skills. And we talked about different terminology, planning our research questions together. So mostly we defined the terms physical activity, disability, and evaluation to help facilitate our research.
So thank you, Fiona, for explaining that one to us. I'm going to move over to Bev. And Bev, could you actually explain what the ethical approval process and how it worked?
Yeah, sure. So the project didn't need ethical approval before involving co-researchers because we haven't collected data from one another. So co-researchers are responsible for steering the direction of the project rather than providing data, and have been involved in kind of organising it from that perspective. But we did have to go through official ethical approval with the university to be able to carry out our research together. And co-researchers were involved in creating all the documentation for that. So doing our research proposal, our research questions, and all the other information which we'll go on to talk about, like consent forms and information sheets as well.
Thank you, Bev. I'm going to pass across to Tom now. So Tom, can you talk about why and how we decided to work with the two different groups of participants for our research?
Yeah, so within our project, we looked at looking at two areas of work. So looking at funders and activity deliverers around what would be useful for them in terms of disability evaluation, but then also speaking to participants about how evaluation could be conducted in a more meaningful way to them. But as a group, we broke into two groups, into smaller groups. I think this was a effective way of doing it because it meant that everyone could have greater involvement within the project. So even though we're a relatively small group, by breaking down into groups of 2 or 3, it meant that everyone could have a real kind of steer on that project and feel really involved within that. So I was in the group that looked at funders and delivery organisations. We looked at breaking down into questions. So when we met with different organisations, we had a set interview questions. They were slightly altered for those that were funders and those that were delivery organisations, but gave us a good structure which we could go back to and kind of get findings which we could compare against. I think actually as well, breaking into the smaller groups, it actually meant we could draw on people's skills as well as their contacts. For example, we know that some people, obviously a lot of the group have lived experience of a disability which could help guide the questions, and we had one person in the group with learning difficulties, so we could use them as a sounding board around how these questions could be made in an accessible format for them. So I think, yeah, breaking into the different groups really meant we could draw on people's areas of expertise.
Fantastic. Fiona, could you talk a little bit about how we made sure our participants had the information that they needed to know whether or not they actually wanted to take part?
Certainly, Nessa. So this is one of my favourite parts of the project, as we had to ensure that all of our participants had the correct information before agreeing to take part. In order to do this, we created information sheets which were bespoke to the needs of the participants. So we really honed in on making sure they were accessible so that they could be read easily, and there were easy read pictures included in these so that they could be understood by those with cognitive difficulties as well. In addition to this, we also created some consent forms which were signed physically as a physical copy with a pen, and also we did an electronic version so that it made it easier for our participants to do this remotely.
Thank you. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we were all involved in the actual data collection. So we went about this in different ways. It included surveys, so written physical copies, as well as interviewing in person and online, as it made it, again, more accessible, not just as a format, but to be able to actually reach certain individuals who were also in different parts of the country. So our interviewing, if I remember correctly, there were biscuits. There were biscuits provided, which were an absolute necessity. You can tell it's always about food with me. But it also allowed us to engage on the day or the days with the participants, because asking something over a phone isn't always necessarily going to work. Asking something on Zoom isn't always going to work. And having that face-to-face contact also meant that if needed, questions could be re-asked and people just felt a little bit more comfortable. We did online surveys with some of our participants. Again, that allowed it to again be more accessible. It allowed caregivers to support if needed as well. And I don't know about anyone else, I'm a bit old school and I quite like things being written down on a piece of paper. So that helped as well. So we tried our best where possible to hit it from different directions and provide things in a format that meant whoever we were engaging with, whether that was a participant, whether it was someone delivering on the ground, or whether it was a funder or a funding agency, who could actually take part. So that's what we tried to do. We lived up to what our background is and what our project is trying to achieve. I'm going to throw this question out to everybody else now. So, especially with Tom and with Fiona, what did you get out of taking part in the project? I'm going to bounce it to Tom first.
Yeah, so from being involved in the project, it was a really good experience. It gave me a bit of an introduction into co-research. Obviously, this project was a co-research project, and that was a new area of work for me. But working within the sport and physical activity sector myself, it seems like this is an area of work where more people are taking a greater focus on as a potential way of best practice working, and to actually have the experience of being involved in this project and to be able to take that within my professional career is really good experience, which I hope will put me in good stead moving forward. As well as it was lovely to meet the whole team. It was such a great group of people working with, but I could talk about that all day. But I'll let you ask someone else, Nessa.
Oh, thanks, Tom. Fiona, how about you?
I got umpteen things out doing this project and I'm still reaping the benefits now. However, one of my favourite things about being involved is the social connections that I've made, not only with the co-researchers and director that I'm working with, but also forging those really important links with national governing bodies for sport and also participants. So a key thing for me is always around engagement in sport. So it's been lovely to talk to a range of different people from different backgrounds and who enjoy different types of physical activity to really see the scope of where we're thinking of reaching to with this project. In addition to this, Bev has very kindly offered us some kind of recompense or reward for our work, although it's a pleasure to do this. It's been lovely to be able to have our expenses covered by some funding that Bev has secured. For example, our printing and paper costs and ink, and also for any technical equipment that was required for this process. Additionally, we've also been offered a voucher of choice, or we can give a donation to a charity as part of the project.
Oh, that was fantastic, Fiona. Thank you. Everything has really been covered, to be honest. One of the things I would add, I guess, is the experience of actually just conducting research. So as a university student at the moment, it has been so invaluable to be able to look at research from a different aspect, because we cover different types within our modules, but I don't remember co-research being part of it. So being able to feed back into the uni, I've got one of my lecturers who's really interested in the project, and again, the process as to how we've done this. So being able to open up co-research to other people and getting people interested in what we know is a pretty fantastic way of engaging people, but making sure that people's voices are heard within research, and it's not the same old. That's been the biggest thing for me. Now, that was where I was going to end, but I'm going to actually throw it out to Bev as the person who started this project up for us. What have you gotten out of it?
Well, for me, it's been invaluable to see how you've all enriched the project in different ways. We've drawn on your kind of experiences, lived experiences, but also your work experiences, and all of the things, the contacts and things that you've got have really enabled us to be able to speak to a range of different people. And doing data collection with you as well, kind of seeing how you relate to participants has really, I think, improved the quality of our data that we've collected, which has been invaluable. Reciprocity is really important to me. So obviously I got the funding for the involvement payments, so the vouchers or the donations, and I think that is vital for this kind of participatory research. But to hear the other things you got out of it is fantastic as well. And I think myself as well, I've learned so much about doing this. So thanks very much, all of you.
Oh, thank you, Bev. It's been fantastic hearing a lot more about the process and the impact that it's had on us as co-researchers. And thank you, Bev, for creating this space for us, is what I would like to say. So that's all from us today, I believe. Thank you to everyone for listening, and please tune into our third episode, which will have even more detail about how we work together to co-produce our research. Now for the cheesy wave. Bye.